Welcome back. You're listening to Megan Harris on In-Depth Radio News Talk 1010. I told you earlier that I was going to have a special guest, and tonight I do. In fact, it's Don McLeod, and he's the co-chair of a new organization called 100 Strong. And why I like this organization is because, last year, it's almost a year since we had that tragedy at Danzig. And there were also a number of other issues where young black men were killing other young black men by violent means. And what 100 Strong is trying to do is pull together some accomplished black men, professional men from various spectrums, and they have decided that it's their turn to try to help the younger generation of young black men so that we can see a reduction or a complete elimination of these kinds of scenarios involving young black men in criminal activities. So one of the founders of 100 Strong, Don McLeod, is joining me here today. Don, welcome to News Talk 1010.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, I love your initiative. I think it's exactly what we need. What made you decide that it was important to do this?
Well, I think just anchoring what you said about Danzig, clearly there's been violence within our community. We have seen a spectrum of things that are happening within the black community, specifically with black men, young black men. And I think it was an opportunity for us to be able to start this organization in order to sort of change the paradigm. If it's right, and I think it is, that education sort of leads to greater advancement even within the Canadian community, then we need to start there.
Okay, and so what you've done basically is you've brought together a number of professional black men, and you've asked them to donate a minimum of $500. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that is to do what?
So what happens is we've asked professional men as well as men acting professionally, perhaps I'll say it that way, and we're asking that all of those individuals give at the very least $500. We'd ask that they give according to their means. So $500 is of little consequence, and we'd ask you to give more. The reality is that what we'd be asking is that money then gets put into a pool. That pool of money then becomes the resource base that we use in order to launch the Summer Academy.
So tell us more about the Summer Academy, because this is your first year.
Yes.
You have 25 young men.
Yes.
Between the ages of...
So they're all young men going into grade 7.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes.
And they're identified from...
They're from different groups. Usually these are from around the area of Regent Park. Some have gone to Lower Dufferin School. There's a catchment of 3 schools that have actually been used in order to get these men. They start the Summer Academy, or started already this week. The end of it is the 19th of July.
So it's a 3-week program.
3-week program.
It's an all-day program.
Yes, it is.
And what is involved? What do they do in this all-day program for 3 weeks?
So for 3 weeks, they're going to learn the basics: math, science, history, all of the basics that go along with school. But this is a platform for them to learn how to learn, and also how to learn in a learning environment. So they for instance, today they would have been at a television station, left from the television station and gone to meet with Pinball. They're meeting with him this afternoon so that they can understanding the mix between, say, public and private life. So going to school, doing those things is one thing, but we want them to be leaders in wherever they are. So we want these young men to be able to be excited about the fact that they're not just going to be playing basketball, but they can own basketball teams. So that's one of the motivations behind getting the school done. So
basically, what you're trying to do is show them that there are different options open to them, because the key, and I think a huge challenge, is that for these young men and women, but this program is focused on young black boys,
yes,
basically, is to make them understand that the world is bigger than the surroundings in which they live.
Yes.
And the reality they experience on a daily basis.
Right.
And so through this program, sorry, I'm just trying to,
that's fine.
Each day, the students have an academic component.
Yeah.
They have guest speakers, but they also have a trip.
Yes.
And so, and it's not just, this is not going to be a program where they're learning hip hop or they're learning basketball or they're playing football.
Correct.
It's to help them become aware, informed, and well-rounded.
Yes, correct.
And give them the confidence.
Almost couldn't have said it better myself, but I'll say it this way, that, I come from that kind of community. So I've grown up leaving Regent Park very young and then living in Ontario housing for most of my life before going on to school. And the world around me was one that was not always known to me or foreign to me. And I think if I had known better then, at a very young age, things would have not taken so long, perhaps, for me to progress. But
You're a lawyer now.
I am. I'm a lawyer at my own law firm.
And what's the name of your firm?
The firm is called the McLeod Group.
Okay, fantastic. But you said to me, I asked you before we came on the air, what inspired this?
Yes.
And you told me of an experience you had as a summer experience
Yes.
that made turn things around for you. So tell me about that, and then what that was the nexus for driving this forward.
So when I was very young, would have been around 12 or 13 years old, went to an organization called Head Start, which was at Ryerson. It was done by young teachers, young black teachers at the time. We were all young, marginalized students as well that had just sort of come into this academy to learn. And it became one of the greatest experiences that any of us had had. That then becomes the platform for 100 Strong. I don't even know where all those teachers are now, but for them, I would say this is because of you.
Okay, so, well, and this is why your program is so important. So this is your first year. You have 25 students. We're entering grade 7 this year. And so tell us how this happens. So they go to school each day. You provide them with a uniform of sorts, a T-shirt.
Yes.
They go to the academic in the morning. Then in the afternoon, they go on a trip to they'll be going to the stock exchange. They'll be actually standing on the exchange floor.
Yes.
They'll be going to the banking towers.
Yes.
They'll be going to studios, media and the like, and also to see the back operation of sports. But there are other things that you're doing as well with this, because you're going to be, there's going to be a mentoring component.
Yes.
So tell us more about that.
So what happens is each boy then will get paired up with a mentor. That mentor will then stay within their lives for as long as those boys would like, to be able to be someone that they can relate to, talk to, experience things with, help them in their school, make sure that they can correspond with teachers and principals of the various schools. Those mentors become very important. The reality is that each man out there, whether you are a father already or a parent or what have you, you're an individual that can give back to someone who needs the giving. And I think when we do those things like Danzig will become less. Will they become exterminated? I don't know. But I think we can definitely do our part, and we haven't to this point.
Okay, and then the next step is that next year, the goal is to expand this program. So next year, the boys who are in grades entering the program now, or are in the program now, will be in the grade 8 class. And then next year, you'd hope to have a new group, and hopefully more than one group of grade boys entering at the grade 7 level.
Right. So we would have a new batch of kids going into grade 7, and those that were in grade 7 going into grade 8. The idea is that over the next few years, that Strong Academy, which is the summer school, will become a school. And so we would be actively seeking, even at this point, endowments and things of that sort to be able to help with that. But for right now, we have TDSB teachers that are teaching the 25 kids. We've got 2 teachers for 25. And then when we get into the next year and we have more kids, we want to keep the class sizes small. So each teacher will have maybe 12 boys amongst them to be able to teach them. We think that's a good class ratio. If we can make it smaller, we will.
So right now you do have teachers. You have, through your board members, we talked a little bit about this earlier. In order to even be a board member, there are certain standards.
Yes.
Well, so tell me a little bit about that.
Well, everyone that's a part of 100 Strong has to give. So the reality is that sweat equity, as we'd call it, is just not enough. So what happens is, even if you're a board member, you still give. And the base amount is $500.
For 3 years. Per year for 3 years.
That's right. And so it is a long-term commitment, and each person is expected to do that.
Okay, Donald, hold that thought. I must take a break, and then we'll resume our conversation. Welcome back. You're listening to Megan Harris on In-Depth Radio News Talk 1010 in conversation with Donald McLeod, the co-chair of 100 Strong, which is a dynamic new organization that's created specifically to work with young Black men, young Black boys, to help them become constructive contributors to our Canadian society. And what makes this organization fantastic from my perspective, and will need your support if you think this is important, is that what Donald has done is assemble a group of successful, accomplished, professional Black men who he feels they themselves have not done enough And it's time for them to step up to create this organization, which is going to foster and nourish young Black boys from underprivileged neighborhoods to help them to become who they are meant to be. So, Donald, thank you for joining us again here on News Talk 1010.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit more about the organization, because you're basically now, this is the first year.
Yes.
Your summer camp program is underway. There's going to be a graduation in a couple of weeks.
That's right.
When is that going to take place?
The 19th of July.
And where is that going to be?
It's going to be at the Lakeshore campus for the George Brown.
And this is basically your official launch.
That's right. So we are going to, on that official launch, be having men that are still going to come and then contribute again towards, and a public display as well, towards 100 Strong. Now, I will say this. The giving right now, because I know we're stressing a lot on the fact that it is young Black men and it's an organization that's begun by Black men. It's not a situation where we want to remain insular in terms of the giving pattern. But I think that it's important that anyone that gives that is not Black, they also need to realize that we are doing our best as well. I don't think that it's appropriate for us to ask others for monies when it is that we ourselves are not even giving. So the unspoken curriculum that we have is one that shows to these young Black boys that not only will men give and Black men will give, but other communities will give as well. But we want to at first establish that Black men understand that they have to be able to give back. And the expectation shouldn't be that everybody else will take care of our problems.
And this is another reason why I love this, because, whenever something happens, that's when, we start asking questions. But you have decided to grab the bull by the horns.
Yes.
And create something and say, you know what, we are responsible and we're going to do this and we will succeed. And the idea here is that you're going to have these summer programs. And as you mentioned earlier, the goal is to eventually open a school. That's right. A private school, because, your kids are going to private schools now, but it would be nice to have something else there. Now, how can listeners help?
Okay.
So what's your website, first of all?
So we have, the website is 100strong.ca, and that's 100strong.ca. On that site, you'll be able to donate. You'll be able to see frequently asked questions. It'll be able to tell you where the headquarters is, phone numbers that can be contacted, as well as how it is that if you want to be a participant or a volunteer, how you can do that.
Okay, and you're also looking for volunteers, mentors as well, correct?
That's right. And again, we're looking for anybody that is willing to help. But we also don't want to have a situation where everyone comes and feels that they can give in sort of. It is important that everyone that comes still gives. So even those of us that are board members, we still financially give to this particular exercise, in the belief that everybody should be able to financially be able to put their wherewithal behind what they're doing.
I love it. Now, you mentioned to me earlier as well, when the boys graduate on the 19th, given that this is a school and trying to foster academic excellence, it'd be nice if there's some potential sponsors out there who could donate knapsacks and supplies to help them back to school.
I mean, I can say this, that we know that the 19th is when they're going to be there, but we want to make sure that we can get some corporate sponsorship as well. If anyone is listening, anyone from Staples or a Business Depot or from places that actually have that type of things available, Walmart, where have you, we'd like to be able to furnish these boys with enough to get them on their way when school starts.
Fantastic. Donald McLeod of 100 Strong. I love what you're doing, and I'm going to keep in touch with you so that we can hear how this progresses.
Thank you
You're
very much.
You're listening to Megan Harris on In Depth Radio, News Talk 1010.